cultures, the left hand is considered bad, dirty, because you use it to wipe yourself and you don't use it to shake hands or to touch anything, even if they happen to be clean. So it's a shameful thing if you use your left hand, not only for the person being touched, but also the person using the left hand. So to use the left hand for anything other than to clean oneself is to invite religious, if not also judiciary repercussions for that. They could even be thrown in jail at that time for overtly using their left hand in any other way. Furthermore, only the privileged, the wealthy, those who are in office or who have some kind of power, were allowed to strike another person without consequence. To deliver a strike with the backhand, then, is the ultimate insult. Okay? So to only, deem to give somebody a backhanded slap, you would only do that to somebody who is considered lower or lesser. One in authority over another had every right to strike a socially lower-ranking individual, but would do so with the back of the hand. An open-handed or fisted strike indicates equal footing. So if I were to slap you, which I never would, but with an open hand or a fist, I'm saying, it's still not nice to do, but I'm saying you're my equal, and you can hit me back, but please don't. We shouldn't be hitting at all, but this is part of what the point I'm trying to make. So, a lower caste servant or a slave or otherwise lower class citizen would never be allowed to strike back, but to offer the other cheek puts the one who is striking in a bind, right? This person must either use the left hand to execute the backhanded strike or use an open palmed or fisted right hand. Whereby placing the stricken on equal footing, worthy of being accorded recognition as such. So it's just a small thing, but it's saying, I am worthy of being treated with dignity, and if you're going to slap me, I will offer my other cheek to you. And it's making a statement, but it's also saying, I'm not going to fight back, but I'm going to remind you of who I am. So Michael Frost, who is a pastor and author and an excellent example of an effective teacher, whose latest book is called, and I love this, Keeping the Church Weird, Embracing the Discipline of Being Different. Isn't that great? Because we think that weirdness is awesomeness, right, Snyder? He explains, turning the other cheek is a way of undermining the whole idea of institutionalized inequality. It strips the oppressor's power to dehumanize the other. Jesus taught those gathered to listen a new way to exist. He explained and outlined how to live into the dignity with which they were created, while being vulnerable and gracious, firm yet loving. Not an easy balance, right? So the so-called Wesleyan quadrilateral, has anybody heard of that? It's the way of understanding God in our context. And Wesley, he didn't actually put this together, but he preached and taught in this way, and then another theologian called it this, Wesleyan quadrilateral. He did, however, teach these partly as an outline, but partly as the way that he developed the Methodist kind of way of doing things. He built on the traditional Anglican premise that we know God through Scripture, okay, that's one, via the rich wisdom of tradition, and by our God-given capability to reason. So we can hear God not just through Scripture, but also through tradition, okay, the wisdom of the people who have gone before us, and by our given ability to reason. Wesley then added that we also know God by experience. And that wasn't being taught very much around that time because you can't control what somebody else experiences of the Spirit of God in them. And the church really liked to control how people understand God. But there is nothing like, nor as powerful as that of experiencing the presence of God. Ourselves, we can know God. Wesley taught that pure and undefiled religion was so much more than just following rules or outlining doctrine. He developed this system, methodical, around which people who wish to grow and hold each other accountable and become the church, perfecting the church known by their love. He developed a system that encouraged rigorous study of Scripture and reading the wisdom of that great cloud of witnesses that came before us. He included sets of questions and tools to stimulate the brain and spurred on to God-given reason. And he knew the beautiful and terrifying experience of living empowered by the consuming fire of the Spirit of God and doing so in faith. So teachers, so we've been talking about the gifts from Ephesians 4 of what all of us have the same Spirit, but we're gifted in different ways. Apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher. Teachers are often philosophical. They wonder and consider from every angle. They love history and to compare and weigh the past with the present and how that might inform the future. They're also frequently really great at debating, not necessarily to provoke, though some might find pleasure in that, in great debate, but to generate good and meaningful, productive conversation about important things. Teachers love doing that. So, in the Genesis reading, Joseph tells his brothers, though you meant it for harm, out of jealousy, misrepresentation, misunderstanding, whatever, God meant it for good. That is, God used the situation for the good of the people, of everyone. So he's teaching them about how God works. In other words, God makes all things right, despite and in spite of our continuously choosing what is not best, acting out of jealousy or misunderstanding or hurt or ignorance. Sometimes we just choose what is not the best for ourselves or for each other. We may choose badly, not according to what God and what is good and right within myself as for those who are around me and beyond. But God uses those so-called bad choices, what we see as bad choices, and maybe know some of the consequences of those. But God uses them as an opportunity to show God's goodness anyhow. In psychology, there's a healing technique referred to as reframing. You may have heard this. Our memories are fickle.